This is Creative Banter. As Ben and I continue our journeys in landscape photography, we find ourselves with a strong desire to learn more about both the natural world around us and the role nature plays in fueling our bodies. To be an advocate of nature means not only to speak on the importance of environmental protections, but perhaps more importantly, to live a more natural life. What that means, of course, is up for debate, at least to an extent. Not everyone can realistically live in a cabin in the middle of the woods with minimal outside contact. Still, we can dream. Nonetheless, all of this is on our minds as we discuss the making of fruit leather, the idea of eating primarily plant-based foods, and how simply being in nature without the camera can be more enjoyable than making a photograph. Let's dive right into this, shall we? Got about an hour left, somewhere around that I'm thinking, until my fruit leather is done.
Till your what?
My fruit leather?
Fruit leather.
Yeah, so
is it like a fruit jerky kind of a thing?
It's like a fruit roll-up, but natural.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I saw this on Instagram months and months back. He posted this reel that pretty much says how to make fruit leather or natural fruit roll-ups, whatever you want to call it. Using like fruits that are going to go bad. And you just pretty much throw, like for the one that I did, it was some strawberries, blueberries, and 2 bananas, as well as like a tablespoon, was it a tablespoon or a tablespoon and a half of honey, and then 2 tablespoons of chia seeds. And then blend all of that together, and then you preheat your oven to 175 degrees Fahrenheit, and you just dehydrate it. You pour it out into a pan as like pretty thin is ideal. Yeah. And then it takes anywhere from 4 to 6 hours for it to like stiffen up to more of like leather.
Okay. So it's just kind of a matter of it's kind of cooling off and
dehydrating essentially.
Dehydrate in the process. Yeah.
Yeah. So the one pan that was the thinnest, because it was the biggest pan that we have, that one finished up and it's actually pretty good. Not like I really expected it not to be, but yeah, it's just one of those, like, you know how a fruit roll-up tastes, and it's so filled with sugar and like, you know, the artificial flavors and everything to that. So you're expecting it to taste one way. And then when you get the natural version of it, it's kind of disheartening a bit in a sense, because it's like, oh, this doesn't taste how a fruit roll-up should, but really.
So is it just a different sort of sweetness, or does it have that same sort of like punch you in the face kind of sweetness?
Yeah. I mean, it's like just putting those 3 fruits in your mouth and eating them. Like, you're not going to get that same sugar drive, like you say, punched in the face by the sugar and everything.
Yeah.
And the flavors are, I mean, they're natural. Like, you're not adding any enhancers to them or anything like that, like what they are when it comes to true fruit roll-ups. Still good. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm looking forward, now that I know that this really works and that I'm able to do this, as simple as that is, I am looking forward to trying out different flavor combinations and making my own, because I always enjoy fruit roll-ups, but I don't exactly want to be punched in the face all the time with sugar.
Yes.
So, so I've got a smaller tray of the whatever was left from the strawberry, banana, and blueberry. And then I also had a bunch of grapes that were going to go bad. So I'm like, let's see what happens here. I don't know how that one's going to go, because like I know how like a grape fruit snack or something should taste, but because of it not having those enhancements, I'm not 100% sure if or how much of that flavoring that they give into it is artificial versus natural.
Yeah, because the whole like artificial grape flavor is like nowhere near what an actual grape is. I mean, it's its own entity, but like it's just complete fantasy world when it comes to flavor. So it'll be interesting to see how that one turns out.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine putting like grapes with some other like berries, like blueberry grape, and like a black raspberry or something might help to enhance those flavors and everything.
Yeah.
But that's why it's all a matter of just experimenting. And the nice thing is, like, even if something goes wrong with it and it doesn't taste good and you end up getting rid of it, well, the fruit was going bad anyway. So
yeah,
it's not like you're wasting any more than what would have already been wasted.
Yeah.
So fun little experience.
My wife and I just finished watching on Netflix it's a multi-part series about twins where they're given one of them is made for 8 weeks to be vegan, the other one is an omnivore, and then keeps track of all their specific health stuff. It was really fascinating just to look at that and how fast the human body can adapt when it is given, good stuff as opposed to stuff that is perhaps a little bit problematic in the way that, our current system works for everything. So it was a little bit of an eye opener. I very seldom ever have any red meat. I have, I'll have chicken and stuff like that, but seeing that is kind of like, I definitely do see the benefits where people will go vegan, but also certain things are far more difficult. But when you're talking about how you're able to, make that go through the process of making all that stuff yourself and knowing exactly what's going into it, it just made me think a little bit about the series that my wife and I had just watched, where, for people that, do go that direction, it's a bit more difficult, but it's, kind of learn a lot in the process.
Yeah, I mean, the closest I got to going vegan was throughout last year, really, just because of avoiding dairy almost as close to entirely as possible, and trying to ramp up my whole food intake and all of that, trying to figure out the whole digestive stomach issues that I had. And I would still love to go plant-based almost entirely with my diet, because I just think it's, like we've talked about before, I think there is more of a fiber deficit than a protein deficit in our diets as it currently stands.
Yeah.
So it's not like I would be terribly concerned about getting enough protein going that way. Not like what a lot of people claim. I mean, I look at Rich Roll, and he is probably one of the most well-known vegan athletes. Has his own interview podcast that he's been doing for the past decade or two, something like that. And he changed his life around when he was in his late 40s, I want to say, somewhere around there. Just was overweight and living a very sedentary life, and one day was walking up the stairs to where his wife and youngest daughter were sleeping, and he got up to the top of the stairs or couldn't even get up to the top of the stairs. He was just out of breath and sweating and terribly out of shape, and he just had this like epiphany of not being able to see his daughter walk down the aisle to get married in however long it would have taken, but nonetheless, and that just wrecked him and made him completely change his life. His story is like phenomenal, and I highly recommend reading through his book that he has. Of course, now I blank on the name, but
that's what show notes are for.
Yeah, exactly. Or quick Google searches.
Yeah.
It's going to bother me if I don't. Finding Ultra is the title of the book. And it chronicles his changing his lifestyle completely and becoming this massive endurance athlete at a very late stage in life compared to when most people start that kind of stuff. So again, highly recommend anyone to read it. But he's kind of like the model that I use for going plant-based, because I mean, if someone can do the things that he has done, doing these major triathlon races and all this stuff, there's no reason to think that our bodies aren't capable of getting the nutrients that we need from non-animal based products. Especially now, I mean, you have Beyond Burger, you have all of these fake cheeses that are coming out and fake like egg, what is it? Just Egg is one of the other companies that they have that are coming out with all these alternatives that are plant-based that pretty much taste the same, but just a little differentiation here and there.
Yeah. I'm just picturing all the negative reviews that are going to come in when people come in here expecting, hot photography talk, but instead they're hearing about your fruit leather and vegan talk.
Hey, whatever. Yeah, honestly, whatever. Whatever.
Yeah.
We're going to go from 12, 14 listeners down to like 10. So
yeah,
that's all right. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's the
easier
true
number to keep track of.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not too overwhelming and we're good.
Yeah.
No, but these are all things that I'm constantly thinking about.
It's something I've been thinking about too. But I don't know. We'll see. I already know I'm there for like my breakfast is always, I just have buckwheat, blueberries, olive oil. It's delicious. It's, nutritious. It's fully vegan. So I'm like, well, there's one meal.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. My wife and I have been thinking about maybe, doing some other substitutions here and there, and see how things go. But like for me, like with red meat, I've never, I don't know, something about eating mammals. I feel like they're too close, and something about the texture of stuff too. I'm not a fan of, so I've always pretty much avoided red meat regardless of stuff. But just, I don't know. We'll see. I think it'll be interesting to see where things come, but there is definitely huge advantages when it comes to the environment and such, which is definitely going to be even more so of a important issue. And I don't know, we'll see on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to think about with all of it, of course. And like the biggest issue that I would run into right now as my diet currently stands is I have been having ice cream every night for like months now because I haven't been able to have ice cream in forever because of all those prior issues. So it's like a year or a year and a half of not having ice cream. That's like, okay, now I want to catch up.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, obviously I can kick it. It wouldn't be terribly difficult for me to not have ice cream at night. But it's still one of those little things of, it was funny. My girlfriend and I went, I think we were out and about during Christmas, and I didn't really have any like desserts when we went for Christmas dinner at her aunt's house, but I think it was on the drive home. I'm like, you know what I could really go for? She's like, what? Like ice cream? She's like, you're ridiculous. And every 10 minutes or so, it was like an hour-long drive. Every 10 minutes or so, I'm like, hey, you know what I could really go for right now? And she's like, shut up. Just stop. So, yeah, it's just, you got to have something that you look forward to in the day besides sleeping. So
I'm not as big of a dessert fan as I used to be. Like for me, like if it's after dinner and I want something, I'll just grab some like cashews or something like that. I mean, like for me, that's plenty good enough. I think I've come to appreciate that stuff as much as, in the past I had enjoyed the dessert stuff, but I don't know. I think some of that's just also a process of getting a little older, and certain things like, dessert in the moment. Yeah, great. But then, a little while later, it's like, yeah, that was not a great decision. So I think that's just one of those things in life.
Yeah. I find that with like breakfast foods. Like when we were out for Colorado through that trip, I mean, I wish I could eat like I did in Colorado every day and have that like self-control, because we were constantly moving. So in the mornings, I would have a bowl of oatmeal with like blueberries or strawberries, whatever we had. And I'd normally, because I just get the, the Quaker Oats, like the ones that come in a pack or little prepackaged dishes, whatever. And I'd eat 2 of those at a time because I needed the calories. But then I really wouldn't eat anything until we had dinner then, because we were just out, we were moving so much. I'd maybe have like a protein bar or something throughout the day. And then at night, after we got back from dinner, I'd have maybe like a little snack, something small. But compare that to how I eat on the daily, where now it's like 2.5 meals a day plus snacks. It's like, it's something needs to shift there. just because, like we've talked about before, it all goes back to like that sugar addiction, because everything is so jam packed with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause it's what sells. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, we have the whole system based around that. Going on to a little bit of a photo related topic. I was talking to a friend a week or so ago, and I was talking about how, about that same time last year, how my wife and I had been in Hawaii. We spent some time there, and it was a great trip. And then he says, are you thinking about going back? And I said, yeah, I think we'll probably go back there within the next year or so, because, we really enjoyed our time there. Maybe go to a different island and check things out. And he says, that must be, he said, you're not going to bring a camera or anything, are you? I'm like, oh, no, not going to bring a camera. And he said, that must be really tough for you, as a photographer, to go to this beautiful place and to not have a camera. And I was telling him, no, it really isn't. I was trying to explain to him how, for me at least, I have to be in a specific mindset when it comes to taking photos. And by default, that mode is turned off. So I have to specifically turn that mindset on when I go on the trips. And I think also that might have something to do with the first day funk a little bit, kind of getting into that mode where, here I am, I'm ready to do stuff. But I think that for a lot of people, by default, and this might also be for people that are newer to photography, where everything's all new, different, you don't quite have a feeling for everything yet, where that mode is turned on by default, and then you have to kind of turn that off. But I was thinking about how this relates to burnout, because I hear people talking a lot about burnout when it comes to photography, when it comes to art and that kind of stuff. And I was thinking about how I don't get burnout. Like I've been doing this for a while, and I don't burn out, but I think it's because by default that mode is turned off. And so then it's a matter of turning that on. It's engaged for a while. Then I shut it back off again, where it doesn't have an opportunity to burn out. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts and your experiences based on that.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to seeing compositions and like looking around, my photographer mode, whatever you want to call it, it's always on. I'm constantly able to point out different compositions, nice light, all that kind of stuff, because it's something that I've observed over the past 10 years and have gotten it's decent at.
Yeah.
But it still, like you, I don't feel a need to go out and photograph every single thing. I much rather enjoy seeing the nice light. Like, so for instance, the other day, I was letting, I think, Lucy out, and these two little birds were chasing a hawk around. A hawk must have tried getting into their nest to take whatever. And the hawk went out into the field and landed on one of the power line towers, and was just sitting there. I'm like, I have the lens for this. I want a photograph of a hawk. And for maybe half a second, I debated running inside and trying to get a photograph of the hawk. But at the same time, I'm like, no, like, A, this isn't how I really would want to photograph a hawk in the first place, like chasing after it like that. And that's just, And B, it's so much more for me about the moment and enjoying being in nature and seeing nature as it happens than it is about me documenting every single little thing. And I think that's also part of why I continue to go back to large format, because with digital, it's so easy to document everything. It's so easy to pick up the camera quick, take a quick photo, even if it's not a great one, and say, hey, look at this awesome moment that I saw, versus just enjoying it, because we've talked about it before in the past, just like with concerts. You go to a concert and you're watching the concert through your phone because you're taking a video of it.
Exactly.
So for me, like, the photography mode is always on in terms of seeing compositions and such and noticing beautiful things. But that doesn't mean that I need to go and photograph it or bring a camera with everywhere that I go. And even with the Ricoh, even having that with me all the time, there are still times that I pass things up because I just would much rather enjoy the time or enjoy the moment than ruin it with the camera by introducing that. So I don't know.
Yeah. And it's something where, I'll certainly notice things. I'll be out and I'll see something. I'm like, oh, that's a cool texture. That's a cool plant. I'm wondering what that is. So there's still that same sense of curiosity, that same sense of noticing things. But there's never a moment where I'm like, oh man, if only I had my camera here and if only I could take a photo of this. For me, it almost comes with a sense of relief in terms of like, this is beautiful, but I'm glad I don't have the added I wouldn't say, maybe stress. I was going to say pressure, but it's not pressure, maybe more stress. But I don't have that added aspect of perhaps stress of, oh, now I have to make all these decisions and I have to do this and that. And although there are certainly those moments when working with large format where you do truly get to enjoy the process. Usually it's a matter of, the moment when you're sitting there staring at the scene and the cable release in one hand and just, waiting for that moment when the wind is calm or whatever it is. I love those moments, but it's everything that kind of goes into setting up. And it does make me wonder if I was working with digital, whether that sense of wanting to make sure or wanting to capture everything around me, whether that would creep back into the picture. It might, but I suspect it probably wouldn't. Just from the standpoint that, it does take a certain mentality to be just in that particular mindset. And that's also one of the reasons why I do need to be, why I don't really do anything local, as we've talked about in the past, where, I do need to be kind of separated from, sort of the everyday life where it forces me to, engage that photography mode. But it does have me wondering if that's one of the reasons why I do hear so much about people having burnout when it comes to that stuff, just because that mode's always turned on. Of course it's going to burn out because it's, you can't keep having that same mindset going just all the time. And I think that might be one of the issues that's out there, why people do have that sense of burnout.
Yeah. I just looked through my phone to see the behind the camera pictures that I take for just documenting the date and everything of when I took a photo. And I went out the first time after getting back from Colorado that I went out with a camera and actually took a photo was November. And so that was 4 months after we got back was the first time that I went out with a camera. And then the next time after that, and that was early November. And then the next time after that was like mid-December. And then after that was just this past Saturday. And that was literally just walking around the field because with Emmy for her first time in the snow. And just because I wanted to see what kind of compositions, small scene compositions I could get just because of the snowfall and all of that stuff. But even like focusing on local stuff, it's, like I said, it's all about that mindset that you bring into it. That determines everything for you. And if you go in thinking, you can go into the woods thinking kind of like, I think 3 different ways. You can either think, I'm going to go in and I'm going to photograph everything that I see. Just if I see something beautiful, I'm going to photograph it. And you can come away with like 200 to 500 photos because everything in nature that you see just happens to be beautiful that day. The light just hits right. Or you could go in saying, I'm only going to photograph what is meaningful to me, what calls out to me, and you still come away with 100 to 200 photographs. Or you could go in how I do when I go into these walks in the woods, more so of, I'm going to be really selective of what I photograph. And I'm going in to enjoy the walk, to enjoy the time spent just being in nature versus doing something in nature.
Yeah.
And I'll come away with anywhere from 0 to 6 photographs, depending on how long I'm out and various other conditions. And you could still follow that mindset and come away with a ton. But I think the mindset that you go into it, if you go into with a mindset of, I want to just enjoy being in nature, even if you do come away with a bunch of images, I don't think you'll burn out as quick because of the reasons behind what you're doing. I think if you're going out, and I think pressure plays into this too. Like if you have a bunch of pressure on yourself, feeling that you need to take photographs, because a lot of people do these days, especially with Instagram and posting daily or posting multiple times a week or multiple times a day. There's a lot of pressure that comes with that that's made by yourself for the most part, but that could still be there and detrimental to something that should be enjoyable otherwise.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about when you were saying how, from your trip out to Colorado, then after that it was, and the trip to Colorado was summertime, I believe, or spring, summer, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, it was July to August. Beginning
so
of August.
from there to November to December, and then to currently, as far as the times you've taken the camera to take pictures, I think some people would look at that and go like, wow, that's crazy that a person can go months and months, between taking pictures. But when you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, that's more frequently than I go out and take pictures.
Yeah, I mean, like
for me, it was June and then like October, and then it'll probably be February or so before I'm out again. So for me, that's normal. Right. But I think for some people, that's definitely not very normal.
I think, like, even thinking about it, the only thing that I don't miss going out with the camera. I miss going out to be in nature. And my priorities are for being in nature. And that has been a shift in, again, mentality that I have been working on for years now and is finally starting to take hold more. So it's not a matter, like I said, of, oh, I really miss going out with a camera. And because if I do, then I would just go into my backyard or into the field, walk around for a bit and take some photos because that mentality is missing the action of taking photos. But that's not what I like. I like the action of being in nature. And if I take a photo, so be it. And that is such a healthier mindset than what so many other people have. Like, because I've heard of and I know of a decent number of photographers out there who are popular. I'm thinking of one in particular right now that really they don't like being in nature. They don't like nature, but they're nature photographers. And they're making a really good living off of being in nature or not being in nature, but taking these photographs. And it's like, well, like, yeah, you're making the money from it, but that's the same thing as working a corporate job for you or I, where
exactly
there's no enjoyment, but hey, at least the money's good. Like, I don't understand the mentality. I mean, I guess if it works for you, then it works, but
yeah, I can see it's something that a person essentially falls into with time. They figure out, oh, well, this is a way of making money, but it is a bit strange, especially for something like landscape photography, nature photography, where usually the reason people get into it is because of the connection with the environment. But now with the sort of the whole influencer culture stuff, it just becomes that, nature is just a backdrop. I think for certain sort of posts and stuff on social media where it's not as much about that. It's simply just a place to get a different backdrop. And I see how if a person they found that they can make money with landscape photography, but they don't truly enjoy, you'd think that would come through in the work in some degree. I'm not sure how, whether it would just feel like the work is a bit forced or, I mean, because there's a lot of exploring, there's a lot of spending time in nature, and you can tell when a person is going through all the effort to try to do a location justice in some degree. You could tell that they've explored, that they love the area and that they enjoy spending time. I think that does come through in the work. I can see how perhaps it might be a little more of a surface level relationship if it's not something they are as invested in, or not something that they appreciate as much, if it's more about the final result and not the experience itself.
Yeah. Or they're the people that are going out to the real popular locations where you're walking 10 feet into nature, or you're right off the roadside anyway. So you're just taking what's popular and selling it to people that were there, but their iPhone pictures turned out to have a bunch of heads in them from not having it up high enough or whatever.
Yeah.
But thinking on influencers and everything too, I saw this video from a pet influencer, and Ben, I think I'm going to start an account for Emmy and start to rake in the cash, because it is absurd how much some of these people are making, or claim to be making. They were the group on Landscape Photographers Worldwide Discord was just talking about this maybe a day or two ago about influencers and the truth behind when they make posts like this of, oh, I'm making X amount per post, and like, oh, I'm trying to be more transparent and everything. Well,
yeah,
this pet influencer in particular posted a reel about how much they made each month throughout 2023. And I want you to take a guess, just a random guess here. How much do you think they made per month?
And are we talking, you said real, so we're talking Instagram here?
Yeah.
I know whatever I'm going to guess, it's going to be way too low. So I'm going to double. I'm going to say 50,000 a month.
You're a little high there, but
okay.
Yeah. This one in particular claims that they've been working at this, and this could be all truthful. I don't, you never know what to believe, but regardless, they were going through and they said that they made about $10,000 per month.
Okay.
Which
is what I was kind of thinking that, but I'm like, it's usually way more than I think. So this is clearly,
this is clearly someone who is just starting out in Ben's world of $50,000 a month. But
I mean, that's how much I'm making off each of my animals. You know, you see all those pictures of Derpy and Finley and Winston hanging out. I mean, I'm raking in 50 grand a month. They're making only 10 grand a month with their pet influencing. Maybe they should be a little more influential.
Apparently, or need a cuter or derpier dog. Not sure, but but still, you think about like $10,000 a month, and then someone in the comments actually added up what the actual numbers per month that they gave, because not every month was 10,000. That was just like the real rough estimate. And according to what this person added up, it was like $220,000 in 2023. So some months were significantly higher than 10,000. So like the first, because they said that they had been working on this for on and off for a bunch of different pets that they have for like 7 years. And then it just took off this past year, I guess. So the first few months were maybe like 5, then 8, then 10, and onwards up, whatever. But $220,000 for the year. Like
that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, something like that, if there's a large amount of money coming in for what is effectively mindless work, it would just not. I would not have the fortitude to be able to do something like that. Like it would just feel like this is not right. I know it's easy to say, but I would not be. I don't know.
My problem with it is the fact that you now just turned your pet, something that you love or you claim to love and everything, into a product.
Yeah.
Like you are selling, that's really what you're doing, is you're selling your pet and the cuteness of your pet or whatever to the masses to make a bunch of money. And yes, that money clearly could do a lot of good in terms of ensuring that pet has one damn good life and is spoiled to all hell.
I'd say so.
But still, like, for me to be like, okay, Emmy, we're going to go outside and we're going to take a bunch of videos of you being cute, and I'm essentially going to use you so that we can live a lot better. But really, I want to do this. Like, I could imagine that there are times, and hopefully there aren't many or any pet influencers like this out there, but I'm sure there are, that force their pets to go through these tricks and do all these stunts and everything and retake video after video because they need to get it just right for that product placement. That just feels so wrong to me. I couldn't imagine doing that. Like me posting pictures of Emmy and everything on stories for Instagram is just because I think she's cute in the moment. That's what she's doing. Like, I'm not forcing her to do anything that she wouldn't otherwise be doing in her derpy, weird little way.
Yeah. It seems like it would get very monotonous and very old very fast. There'd be no real challenge to it. and again, I know it's easy to say this as a non-pet influencer, but it just, I don't know. It doesn't strike me as I don't know. It just feels very very strange. Now, I will say that on the same Discord, the Landscape Photographers World Discord, another thing I have here, kind of written my notes as far as some things to bring up. There was a post a little while back, and I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know who it was, but it was there was a discussion about fall color and understanding why certain leaves will turn certain colors, which I found to be very fascinating. And looking back at this information, I was able to look at some of the photos I have and then understand why the trees are behaving the way that they were. Because in Zion, for example, the maple species there, they're called big tooth maples. And they'll grow in all sorts of places, generally on hillsides. And if they're on hillsides, they're generally up against cliffs. And during the fall, I'd noticed that some of the maples would consistently turn red. Some of them turn yellow. Some of them are orange. And it would vary a little bit from year to year. Like one year, there might be one tree that turns red. The next year, it might not be quite as vivid of a shade of red. But I could never figure out why it was. I mean, I was like thinking perhaps there's some changes within them in terms of traits and this and that. But as it turns out, in the way that it was explained on the Discord, basically, once it starts getting cold, it shuts off the valves, the outflow valves from the leaves. And then just so long as it is sunny and the tree gets a lot of daylight, the photosynthesis continues, but it keeps building up these sugars, which is what makes the leaves turn red. And so essentially what I noticed as well is that the trees that get a lot of sunlight, once that switch has been flipped, they're going to be the ones that turn red. But if those trees don't get as much sunlight, then they'll turn yellow or maybe a little bit of orange. And I started looking back at the various photos I've taken of maples, and sure enough, the trees that get blasted with a lot of sunlight during the fall season, just the way that the cliffs are and the shadows fall with the sun tracking across the sky, those ones will usually turn red. The ones that don't get as much sun usually turn yellow. And if there wasn't as many sunny days, then the reds aren't quite as vivid. So it was just kind of interesting to get that background knowledge of it takes that cold temperature to shut off those valves, and then as much sunlight as there is will determine the color of the leaves. So, it's kind of interesting to learn stuff like that, and then to see examples of that out in nature in a place like Zion. But, just one of those fun things to learn.
Yeah, I'm actually just found the person that explained all of that. That was beginning of December.
Who was the person? Because I want to make sure we give him credit.
I will post a link in the show notes to the actual thread and to their Instagram. Their Instagram handle is @PalmsOfVancouver. Because I'm gonna butcher their Discord name. Sam, I think, is his name. It's Philostashi Sam, something like that. He's a horticulturist, so I'm sure that plays into his Discord name here. But yeah, really great thread going down it. Really great information for that. Even as a black and white photographer who doesn't care at all about fall color, but I've always been interested, and my dad's asked before too, like if I knew anything about why fall color goes along how it does and all that stuff. I'm like, no, not really. But now I can say I do. So
yeah, it was just one of those things where, especially in Zion, I think because there are so many variables at play. Like you just see here's this one tree that was orange last year, but now it's a red, but then it's yellow. And I could never figure out what it was that was going on. But once they broke it down with how that process actually works, then there were some maples on some hillsides that get a lot of color. I'm like, oh yeah, well that's why those ones are always red. So it's just one of those things where when you're out in nature and you observe those things, at some point you figure out why it is that, something happens the way it does. And I think that only helps to build a greater sense of appreciation for the world around us. So that was something that I thought was really, really fascinating to understand and to learn. I hope you enjoyed our creative banter. You can learn more about Cody's work by visiting his website, codyschultz.com. And you can find my work at benhorn.com. For further discussion, join us at patreon.com/creativebanter. It's a place where we can interact with you, the listener. And although we greatly appreciate those who contribute by joining a tier, discussions are open to everyone, whether you're a paying member or not. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you around next time.